Chapter 38, Day 7. I felt my body awake from my slumber, but I dare not open my eyes as fear of what I'd see. Is it finally over? Is the nightmare in which I can't wake up from over? Everything feels numb, sort of the way it does when I wake in the morning from a sleepless night. Weak and sluggish, with the heaviness of the world weighing down upon my chest. I could feel my slow breath swelling in my ribcage. In and out, barely keeping me alive. As hearing re-entered my field, I listened in a way that I had before. In the blackness I no longer wished to see. I couldn't hear any really distinguished sounds that might have given me an idea of where I was. I could hear only my breath, and from time to time a creak or a crack. I listened, pinpointing the exact location of the soft sounds. I've not been here long, or have I? Whether I have or haven't, I don't recognize the sounds as I had in my own home. I began to move my right hand to feel the smooth texture of a hard floor. It's cold with a slippery feel to it. I moved my finger again, as my body recognized its own senses. One by one, I felt this world becoming more realistic, from the smell of dust to the dried taste of the air. Am I free? What if it's just a trick? Did I send all those teens to their deaths? Well, if I had, then I'm dead too, right? Curiosity overtook fear as I opened my eyes. With a slow pace, my vision turned from one of total black into a gray and black night. I was directly across from what appeared to be windows, but not like house windows, more like the ones you'd see in factories to avoid overheating the workers. Several of the small glass squares were shattered or discolored, from what I can only predict were once clean. The outside world was dark, with only a slight light coming out from the windows. My body that lay on the opposite side of the building. The floor was a smooth concrete, with several cracks, some of which held weeds from within their depths that towered high and wide. Graffiti marked the once white brick walls, poorly done if I might add. Lights hung by off-balanced or broken wires, along with the high ceiling of what I can only predict a factory, long past its date of use. I lay against the wall opposite of my view, with head hung slightly right. Is this real, or still the game? I attempted to turn my head to the left, to get a better view of the area, only to feel a sharp and unnaturally strong pain from my head. I yelled, with tears running down my eyes. I instantly rose my right hand to press against the pain, hoping to lessen it in any way possible. My breathing became rapid, as the shock soon passed, leaving me panting in the silent room. My left hand stirred a moment, only for something to catch my attention. A blue phone lay clamped in my palm, with a name carved into it. Am I still here? I slid up the cell, creating a blue light across the blackness. I noticed then the bar of reception, ensuring my freedom. I quickly moved my thumb to the numbers, dialing 911. I moved the phone to listen. 1 ring. 2 rings. 911, what's your emergency? A woman called from the other end. A large smile marked my face, with an almost disbelief to what had happened. I really am free. Hello? The woman called. I tried to speak, find that my throat wouldn't allow it. Sir? Help. I managed to spit out, in a dry and low tone. Sir, do you know your location? The woman asked. I shook my head, without thinking, creating another blood-rattling scream from the pain that erupted within my head. I began to sob, as the pain proved more than I could physically take. Sir, what's wrong? Is someone hurting you? Can you tell me where you are? Her voice became panicked from my screams. Cell phone, I huffed, catching my breath. Cell phone? Are you calling from a cell phone? Do you not know where you are? She questioned, trying to make sense of a senseless situation. Killer, I coughed, finishing my words. Is the cell phone killer there? Is that why you screamed? Can you tell me where you are? 3 beeps ended our conversation. I looked at the black screen of the dead phone with hate. No, this can't be. She doesn't know where I am. I don't even know where I am. No. No, no. My lifeline just died. Be patient. Phones can be traced, right? It's only a matter of time until the police find me and with the temptation of the cell phone killer, and a scream like that. I'm sure it won't be long. My eyelids once again became heavy, as my mind fought to remain awake, though it wasn't long before I found myself fully engulfed in the dark shadows of my mind. Hello? Can anyone hear me? A voice called out, breaking my cold slumber. I opened my eyes, slowly. My sluggish actions were clear that I had indeed been asleep, for a good amount of time. I noticed my mouth was open, with a now even drier taste than before. Flashes of light moved through the darkness, creating sight for the few who walked among the shadows of the empty factory. If you can hear me, give us a sign, the same man called once again. I grunted slightly, unable to form words, but it was nowhere near loud enough. In truth, I'm not even sure if it was audible at all. I attempted again, with a similar sound. Come on. Hear me. A thought filled my drowsy mind. I lifted both of my hands, clapping them softly, making noise only slightly louder than my groan. The claps were slow and soft. I just hope they're enough. Within a few seconds, the man who'd been calling hushed everyone, ending all sound within the night, with the exception of my sign. Flashlight shined on my face, causing me to shield my eyes. Are you all right? A man asked, running over to me. Call in the paramedics. I only replied with a smile, and tears returned to their fall. The man pulled me into a hug with a whisper. It's all right now. You're safe. Those simple words are something I thought I'd never hear again in my life. 5 words broke all my walls and worries, until nothing remained. Within seconds, more people entered the factory, 2 of them carrying a stretcher, in which I was strapped to, and carried out of the darkness into the rising dawn, then to an ambulance, surrounded by several other emergency vehicles. 2 paramedics stood in the back of the ambulance that began moving the moment the doors shut. Patient seems to be exhibiting wounds to the right side of the skull that appears to be several weeks old. Bruises cover the neck that only seem to have occurred only a day or 2 ago with fresh marks. The paramedic continued listing several fresh cuts and bruises, including the letters cut into my skin across my arm. Try wrapping this around to avoid any additional damage, one called to the other. 2 hands lifted the bottom of my head, near the middle of my skull. Panic began to engulf me, not wishing to feel that again. I jolted up, to avoid the hands from touching me. My skull fell hard against the cot, with a hard thud. Vision blurred, as the pain erupted from the side of my head. Heat filled my body, as the vision of the ambulance turned to a black. A steady beep filled the silent room, with small mumbles of whispers, too far to make out. I moved my fingers slightly, as my body recognized its own senses. One by one, I could feel this world, the real world, from the smell of chemicals to the touch of the warm blankets that moved up and down against my chest, with a steady breath I never thought I'd ever have again. Fear filled my mind, but with an unknown reason. With fear came relief. I'm free. I'm finally free from hell. The mumbles that flowed around me soon peeked into my hearing, in short words and phrases with my waking body. I feel as if I've been asleep for a long time, and now I'm suddenly beginning to rise out of the dark and blank depths of my mind. Jacob, a woman's voice called. Not just a voice. The voice I didn't think I would ever hear again. Huh? I recognized my father's voice. Margaret? My mother sighed, shifting her heels from side to side, creating a small click against the hard floor. How is he? What are you doing here? My dad questioned for me. He's my son too, so please just tell me how he is, my mother begged. He got out of surgery 8 days ago, and the doctors took him off sedation a few hours to see how he reacts. But so far, he hasn't moved, my dad explained, with minimal detail, as I'm sure he didn't understand it when he was told the first time. So he's going to be okay then? I could tell my mother was uncomfortable, just as my dad was. I never thought I'd ever hear them speak to each other in such a calm manner. I never even thought they'd be in the same room after what happened. Mr. and Mrs. Krell, a female nurse called, entering the room. The voice was young with a sweet tone to it. However, something seemed off about it. Yes, my dad replied, and my mom remained silent. Visiting hours will be ending in 10 minutes. As well, I'll be running a few tests on your son's progress. You are welcome to stay for the time being, the nurse assured, walking over to me, or at least that's what I believe is happening. I could feel small hands brush against my skin, moving from place to place with practiced skill. My right eyelid was lifted, with a blinding light that moved from side to side, a black outline of a person above it. How is he? My dad asked, breaking the silence. As I'm sure you are aware, your son came in with several fractures to his skull, which were several weeks old. When we entered into surgery, we discovered a large amount of swelling, indicating secondary impact syndrome, on top of TBI. Most of the damage was done to the temporal lobe, which could indicate future issues with speech, hearing, vision, behavior, and memory. His breathing and heartbeat are once again stable. His eyes are dilating, which is a good sign. However, there's still a high risk that he will not wake up. And if he does, there's still the risk of disability from his injuries, said the nurse coldly, checking my vitals. How much of a risk is there he won't wake up? My mother inquired, her voice cracking. Around 33% survival rate at this point, which is higher than yesterday. We're keeping a close eye on your son, and I promise we're doing everything in our power to ensure that he wakes up, the nurse stated. I'm awake. Or at least I'm awake enough to understand what's happening. If I could just open my eyes and let them know I'm okay. I want to see my dad and even my mom. I want them to know everything that's happened. I need to tell everyone who the cell phone killer is. Just open your damn eyes. I felt my eyelids fighting to follow my mind's commands, with a slow reaction. We'll call you if anything happens. Go home and get some sleep, the nurse said. A soft kiss pressed against my left cheek, as the sound of my mom's heels walked away from me. My dad's hand took my right hand, holding it tight for a moment, with no response. My fingers refused to accept the order to squeeze back. Dad lowered my arm against the hospital bed, leaving with my mom. A line formed in my vision, only to see the shadow of my father exiting the hospital room. I groaned slightly, as an indication that I wanted him to come back, but no one heard me. I opened my eyes a little bit wider, increasing the blurry image set before me. I couldn't make the details of anything in the room, and rather only saw the colors that outlined the decor. A white blanket covered my body, tucked in tightly, covering up where my ribcage ended. My arms rested on both sides of my body, with a limp and lifeless appearance, with wires and tubes, much like when I had woken in the first time into the real world. I looked slightly right to see the light blue scrubs of the nurse who'd been speaking. I couldn't really make out her face, but I could tell she had a clipboard, flipping through the information. She took notice of me looking at her. You're finally awake, aren't you? She questioned with a smooth voice that seemed strange. I can't exactly explain it. The woman hummed a sweet tone, brushing her hand against my jawline. So, I hear you figured out who the cell phone killer was. Her hand tightened around my neck, pressing against my throat. It set panic through my body that refused to react. Having trouble? Aw, how disappointing. I wanted to see your unbreakable spirit. Seems the game maker's little hit to the head did more damage than he predicted. The nurse sighed, releasing my neck from her grasp. Game maker. She knows about the game. She knows what happened. She knows him. I bet you think you're so clever, don't you? Think you figured it all out one step at a time. With each clue, you found yourself closer and closer to the truth, and yet you only figured out part of the test. Small and short grunts erupted from my lips. It wasn't loud enough for anyone, except the two of us, to hear. The nurse came close to my ear, whispering as if her words were sweet lullabies. You never figured out the killer. Only the man behind the mask. My eyes widened, and the realization came fully into my cloudy thoughts. I never won, and that means my time is up. No, I won. I fought, I killed, I figured out the clues, damn it. I won. Don't tell me I didn't. I've already woken up. Don't make me go back to sleep. I could feel the strains of a tear running down my face from total defeat. Oh, come now. Don't cry. Remember? The blank doesn't cry. Does the gamer? A smirk formed across the young nurse's skin. John Doe, you never had a chance against us. All along, you fought against the figurehead, forgetting all about the true threat. That mistake just cost you your life. The fake nurse pulled a vial and needle from her blue scrubs. This caused my heart to jump into my throat, which already had trouble breathing from the salt churning against my face. This, added with the short breaths I found myself taking. How fitting to be killed by what you fear most, the nurse laughed, filling the needle with a seemingly colorless liquid, an almost pale blue shade to it. Eyes widened as the blurry image of the nurse cleared slightly. No, it can't be. Though if you wouldn't mind, and I know you can't tell me either way, I'd like to know your real name. John Doe is just so stupid if you ask me. You never got to tell me before I reached my own game over. The nurse walked over to a chart at the end of my bed, needle in hand, ready to inject. Aw, that's so cute. If I had known this was your name, I would have called you this instead. I guess it couldn't be helped, though. If I was going to play along with everyone, even I had to follow the rules. I wonder what Hal would say if he knew all along that he was playing alongside the killer. The click of her heels echoed as she walked towards me with a sly motion. Connor Krell, may I be the first and last to congratulate you on almost winning my game. She snickered, taking an IV that had been hooked in my arm. The nurse pressed the needle into the clear tube, emptying the contents into my bloodline. You've only got a few minutes left of life, so I suggest if you have any last words, now would be the time to say it. The nurse laughed wickedly. A man appeared in the doorway of the hospital room, with flowers in hand. He was in his early 20s, with pale skin and night hair shaved on one side of his head. He wore skinny black jeans, meeting his worn sneakers. On his top, he wore a plain black jacket with a gray striped V-neck. The cell phone killer, Tyler. How is my favorite little contract? He smiled, asking in a childish tone. I'm sorry, sir. It doesn't appear your friend will be making it through the night. Seems there was damage to his brainstem we had not seen. Cause of death? Heart failure. The nurse played with my life as if I wasn't there. Pain erupted from my chest, just as she spoke. Lines on the meter behind me began to spike, creating loud ringing noises. My heartbeat increased to an unreasonable level. I was barely breathing, with the air moving so quickly. The tightness in my chest burned. I felt as if my very insides were on fire. Real nurses flooded the room to discover the source of the loud scream that erupted from the heart monitor. Sir, we're going to have to ask you to wait in the visitor room, the fake nurse left with the killer. Is he going to be all right? Tyler questioned in a phony, concerned tone. I don't know, she smirked, disappearing from my sight. A last shot of pain blasted through my body. It almost felt as if I was being electrocuted by one of Alice's contraptions, or by Eve's taser. My back arched before turning limp, with no control from the nurses who stood around me. A single tone took over the room, with the signal of defeat. My vision turned dark quickly. My head reached the pillow once again, with only a faint line of the real world left. With weak breath and slurred sounds, I broke my silence, and the last remaining tears from my eyes fell down my cheek. Alice. The end.